stunning looks than swift.
Thank you so much for joining us on Maruti Suzuki Arena presents ESPN Cricket for Match Day, as we're building up to the only match of the day in the Cricket World Cup 2023. It's coming to you from Pune. The one side you have Sri Lanka, the other side you have Afghanistan. Both the teams still in contention for a top 4 spot. And to talk about that game, build up to that game in Pune, I'm joined in studio by Steve Harmison, also joined from Sri Lanka by Farveez Maharoof as well. Gentlemen, good to have the two of you in the studio with us. As always, I think just from the two teams' perspective, Steve, you're almost more than halfway through the league stages. And from both teams' perspective, both are still in with a shout of the top 4. And this can't be a much more better scenario for either Afghanistan or Sri Lanka going ahead.
Yeah, I think the games have fallen nicely for them. And I think this is a game which could set both up. If you look at Afghanistan's next 2 games, they play obviously Sri Lanka today, then they play in the Netherlands.
Yeah.
They play in Pune, which is going to be a really good surface to bat on and to play on. So hopefully the winner of this game will get confidence going forward, because the likelihood is they'll win the game by a good batting performance. So that, for me, makes it a little bit sort of extra special, that the winner in this is the one that can catapult them into potential of top 4. And personally, I think the top 4 are more or less done. I think Australia are going to take some catching with 8 points at number 4, but with obviously points to play for, with Champions Trophy and all them conundrums. You have got a lot to play all the way through till the 9th game. Yeah,
it really push yourself to the limit in a sense. Farveez, what's the mood like in Sri Lanka? Is there a sense that this team can make the top 4, albeit an outside chance?
Definitely outside chance is a possibility, but as Steve said, more or less the top 4 is almost done. But you never know. Cricket is a funny game. Something might happen, and Sri Lanka, Afghanistan, even Pakistan, you never know. But overall, I think the mood in the camp is really good, beating England, but by a 8-wicket margin. The way they bowl, the way better. I thought the mood will be very good, and as Sri Lankans back home, the expectations are a little higher after beating England, so to say.
But Farveez, just suddenly then context comes into play, and I'm loving the fact that this Champions Trophy qualification is decided in this World Cup league stage, and suddenly there's so much to play for till the end of that league stage.
Absolutely, top 8. I mean, two is going to miss out, and that's 2 is going to be. Who is it going to be? I mean, no one wants to miss out on a Champions Trophy. Personally, I've played myself in many Champions Trophies. There's a lot to play for, because after the 50 over World Cup, that's something that brings a lot of competition, brings a lot of pride into play. So at the moment, I think Sri Lanka is doing well. They got the momentum behind them, and it's a very important game against Afghanistan to win somehow and stay in the contention. And the top 8, I mean, when I read the news yesterday about the top 8 only going through, I'm like, okay, this is going to get heated up. Even England, they will be wanting to win the next 3 games and somehow to be in that Champions Trophy somehow. So I think, it's all to play for. There's no freebies or no easy games here onwards. Everyone wants to make the top 8.
I'm just thinking, Steve, prior to the tournament, if you put it out there in the public that top 8 make Champions Trophy, it just adds so much to the World Cup. So much to look forward to. But suddenly news is just coming in. Someone is finding out on day 1, someone is finding out on day 2. And I wonder, why was this not made public before the tournament started?
Yeah, that's strange. There's a few things in that that's strange that I can't get my head around, that they've brought it in right in the middle of the tournament. ECB in England said they only found out yesterday, where Shakib Al Hasan said a couple of days in his press conference, we've got to finish in the top 8. So somebody's not telling the truth. I feel sorry for Ireland and the West Indies, who have not got a chance to even qualify. There was mentioned last night that England are still mathematically not out of it. They're finishing in the top 4. I'd be happy if they finish 8th, never mind in the top 4. So, but it does give that sense of the last 3-4 games of this tournament something to play for. England want to be in that Champions Trophy. The winner of this will probably guarantee themselves a position in the top 8. And I think that is what the next sort of 2 or 3 games in the round robin stage is going to be more special for, or give them more of an impetus to go and potentially play, to bring their ear game to think, right, it's not about just seeing the tournament out. We actually need to be in the top 8 to make sure we're in the money stage of the next global event. And that's massive for countries like Afghanistan, for likes of Bangladesh, for Sri Lanka, and 1 or 2 others, Afghanistan at the bottom. So it's, and Netherlands as well. So there is all to play for.
Farveez, I'll ask you this because Steve, went at it saying right now that Ireland and West Indies don't have a chance to qualify now. But would you say this is the right way to pick your top 8 for a tournament called the Champions Trophy going forward?
I've been quite vocal about only having 10 teams in a World Cup. Nevertheless, top 8, because I've always wanted teams like Zimbabwe, Ireland, West Indies, everyone involved in the World Cup. Because if you take an example like Zimbabwe, players like Sean Irvine, Craig Williams, those players have done so much for international cricket, and all of a sudden, this is their going to be a last World Cup, and they're missing out on it. So that's a heartbreaker thinking of it. So when it comes to top 8 now, and those 3 teams doesn't have a shot at it, it's quite sad to see. And also, in the middle of a very important tournament, the new rules coming is never easy, never good as far as I'm concerned. Because beginning of the tournament, you need to be given out everything as players. You should know what are the pros and what are the cons. So unfortunately, it is what it is, and at the moment, all 10 teams will be fighting hard for it. And it's going to be exciting World Cup here onwards, or maybe 2 days onwards till the end.
And second that for sure, toss has happened in Pune. And Afghanistan has won the toss. They've decided to field first. Not surprising, really, because there is a due factor that comes into Pune as well. Also, you'll be backing your team. You're not surprised with that decision by Afghanistan, backing their bowlers to do the job?
Yeah, I think that's the correct decision. The due factor comes in. But we've looked at this tournament, and there's been not many close games. And I think the due factors come in the second part of the second half.
Yes.
Where
8:39 p.m.
Yeah,
types.
but not by that time. A lot of the games have been more or less done. They've been more or less finished. So it doesn't surprise me that they've gone in and tried to use their strength, which is to bowl first, to try and contain, to try and get a position where they know the game's in front of them. And with the likes of Zerdran and Gulbaz at the top of the order, they'll feel as though whatever total that's in front of them, they can go and chase it. So it's no surprise that Afghanistan have decided to bowl first.
But again, I'm guessing all the focus, Steve, is going to be on those bowlers, right? What Mujib does, what Rashid does, and sort of that support role that Nabi gives you if the ball is turning.
Yeah, if the ball is turning, I think that's going to be the key issue. If the ball is turning, if the ball doesn't turn, it's not a massive ground. It's a good bit pitch for the ball to come on. So from that point of view, there's going to have to be some smart thinking on the Afghanistan bowlers' point of view. You might find that Nabi bowls more than people would think. You might not go from the sort of part-time fill-in job to his experience might be utilised more in the first half because of his nous, his know-how, and the way his experience is used. So I think all in all, Afghanistan have got the ball in their court. It's in their favour, and they will dictate the game by how well they hold Sri Lanka in that early part.
True. Take a look at these numbers. Farveez, Pacers overall, if you say at Pune since 2021, ODI cricket 65%, overs for Pacers, 35% for spinners. But look at the wicket column, and that's where you see the difference. 42 for Pacers, 11 for spinners. So really, while we keep on talking about Afghanistan and their dependency on spin, like Steve mentioned, in those first 10, first 15, how your Pacers set it up really depends on how you move on.
And when I see these stats, I'm thinking this is going to be subcontinent or not, because 65% fast bowlers in subcontinent, that's we hardly see. So it shows that it's true bounce, and usually Pune gives us pitches where it's a lot of runs and fast score more than 320 runs, so it speaks to itself. So as far as I'm concerned, when it comes to Sri Lanka, they'll prefer coming to bowl in the evenings. Why I say that? They got 3 really good quicks. Yes, I understand Laila Kumara is out, and he's been replaced by Dushmantha Chamira, which I've been hearing that he's been bowling really well in the nets, bowling with good pace and some movement. So Kasundraditha Dilshan Madhusankar in form, with Dushmantha Chamira coming and steaming in, bowling at 140. And if Sri Lanka could muster close to a score of 300, and both of you all said, the due comes in after 8:30. So if you calculate it, bowling second innings starting at 6:15 till about 8:30, that's about 32 overs.
Yes.
Bulk of the bowling of the new ball will be done, and there will be some moment. I mean, a lot of cricket in India. Pune does assist the fast bowlers under lights with the new ball much more than anywhere else. So this is where I think Sri Lanka tactically got to be very, very strong about it, because we all know Afghanistan top 3 batters, if one of them gets going, they usually bat around the one of them and rally around. So Ibrahim Zadran, Rahmat Shah, Ramullah Gurbaz. If Sri Lanka could, get them cheaply with a moving ball, that has happened before, because Sri Lanka and Afghanistan have played a lot of bilateral series, which I have covered in Sri Lanka, and that's been the scenario. Whenever Afghanistan has won, Sri Lanka has taken wickets with the new ball. So if Sri Lanka could manage to do that, as well as score close to 300 runs, I think we are in for a very good game.
Farveez, you look at this head-to-head, and yeah, of course, there's a clear winner in Sri Lanka, 7-3 in favour of them. But since 2022, Afghanistan has sort of clawed their way back in contests with Sri Lanka. But more importantly, Farveez, what is happening in that camp with the number of injuries that are happening, players coming in? Lahiru Kumara did so well, now he's picked up an injury, and now Karunaratne is coming in for him, and Shamira as well.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to injuries, I'm no stranger. I've been a big part of it, so I can speak about it. I mean, it's unfortunate. Lahiru Kumar, the way he bowled, man of the match, pace, bounce at the Bangalore pitch, he would have loved. He would have been licking his lips, wanting to have a bowl at the Pune stadium, but unfortunately, he broke down, and that's a bit of a question mark being asked in and around the Sri Lankan setup. Why so much injury? So that's something that Sri Lankan authorities should be having a look, and team. As expected, it's going to be the same. Only the change of Lahiru Kumar, Dushman Chamira. I like this team.
Kusal Pereira as well, Farveez. Kusal Pereira is out. Karunaratne is also in.
Correct. I mean, sorry about it. Kusal Pereira, as expected, because I think last 5 games he has only 1 half century against Australia, and average of 15.
Yes.
And if you take Kusal Pereira and Dimuth Karunaratne has this tag of being a test player. He's too slow, this and that. But Kusal Pereira has the knack of having that nickname of being a dasher in the openings in ODIs. But if you look at numbers, that suggests us. Take a look at that strike rate of 89.5 and 88.7 with Dimuth Karunaratne. It shows that Dimuth has upped his game, and 5 half centuries, whereas only 1 half century. So this was going to happen, from the last game. But Sri Lanka think tank gave Kusal one more chance. But unfortunately, he couldn't come good. But I like this move as well. Dimuth Karunaratne brings some steadiness up in the odd. And Pathum Nisang, we all know, back-to-back 4 half centuries, he's in form. So it's all about getting a good start. And once you do that against a side like Afghanistan, you could really hurt them if you don't give wickets in the middle overs to Afghanistan.
You just want to understand, when you're playing these big tournaments, of course, there's a player coming in who's played the big stage. It's not someone who hasn't experienced the big stage. But injuries you can't do anything about. But in terms of making tactical changes, even in the second half of the tournament, where do you stand with that? Because what does that tell you? That you don't know what your direction is? Are you still not happy with the team is functioning, so you're always tweaking something around?
A little bit of the latter. You're always tweaking to try and get that little bit extra, that 1, 2, 5% better. You go in with your A team, and if injuries are preventable, then you have a plan for. You also have a plan for certain bodies, what I mean by human bodies. So if you're looking like, majority of the time it's fast bowlers. A fast bowler will be prioritised against X team, and X team, and given a rest in between, because that's their plan, and you also you want to maximise their value of matchups against. But from a batter's point of view, very rarely do you see in a tournament where you see rotation or chop and change, unless somebody's completely out of form. Like yesterday, we talked about England. England made the change from all-rounders to specialists back to all-rounders because plan A didn't work, plan B didn't work, so we went back to plan A because that was what we started the tournament with. Now, I think from a Sri Lankan point of view, Kusal Pereira just hasn't fired.
But a big-name player.
A big-name player, but you're bringing in another big-name player. So it's not as though you're bringing in a novice. It's not as though you're bringing somebody in who potentially you're worried that it might take a game or 2 to get them in a position to go, right, he's going to get his feet in the World Cup, and then we'll get the maximum out of him in the second game. You need somebody to hit the ground running, and Karunaratne he's an experienced batter, seen his numbers, he's in form. So it probably is, you give somebody 6 games, 5 games, and you say, you're not performing, it's time to make a change for the better of the group, rather than being a sort of a panic move.
Fair point. Let's talk about the Afghanistan 11 now. One change in that Afghanistan 11, an expected change as well. They're not going in with 4 spinners. 3 spinners, Steve, and Fazal Haq Farooqi comes back into that Afghanistan bowling lineup. You've got Rashid Khan, Naveen ul Haq, Mujibur Rahman. What do you make of their pacers and how they've performed? Because all the chatter whenever you talk about Afghanistan is about what the spinners are going to do. How are they going to come at you? But the pacers do have a fair bit of job to do as well.
Absolutely, and I think Naveen has bowled quite well. For me, he bowled one of the bowls of the tournament. I'm trying to think which one it was. He was a little off-cutter at, was Rizwan, or he bowled somebody off stump, I can't remember.
Rizwan was Bumrah.
Rizwan was Bumrah. There was another one exactly the same. I can't remember which game it was, but it was an absolute beauty, and I was thinking if Bumrah had bowled that, you'd see it every single day. And he's bowled well, but I'm intrigued by why you'd make the change. Yes, Pune is telling you that it's spin. It doesn't spin. It's not suitable for spin. It's more suitable for pace. But Farooqi he's averaging 79. So you have to be careful. You make the change because stats is telling you. But if the person who you're making the change is averaging 79 with the ball, you're probably better off staying with the spinner and keeping to the all-round game plan that you've got. But they've made the change, they've gone with it, and Farooqi's going to have to bowl well because he's going to have to set the game up in that first 10 overs for his spinners to be effective, especially now they're going to bowl obviously in the middle of the day.
But it's always a case of how much do you respect the conditions, right? Because conditions over instinct over form. Because if you look at that last game and how Afghanistan bowled, Noor Ahmed was the pick of the bowlers, the best bowler of the lot, and you've dropped him and you brought in someone because conditions say that spinners, 4 spinners, 40 overs don't work here.
Absolutely. I mean, the player who changed the dimension of the Pakistan innings got dropped. That's something surprising for me. And also when Afghanistan, when they talk about the tactics, they know they're going to, bowl first if they win the toss. And especially a spinner will be little effective bowling in the daytime. So I'm surprised that, Noor Ahmed is being overlooked. But all I can think of Fazal Farooqi playing against Sri Lanka because of the numbers may be better against Sri Lanka. Because I've covered a lot of games where Fazal Farooqi with the new ball has picked up wickets against Sri Lanka. So that may be another reason why they've entrusted with Fazal Farooqi, and he swings the ball. We all know that. But it's quite a surprise for me when Noor Ahmed being left out because Sri Lanka would have definitely yesterday in the team meetings would have spoken about Noor Ahmed, the quality what he brings along with Rashid Khan in the middle overs.
Also, Steve, when you look at the way these boys bowl in terms of spin, condition or no condition doesn't really make a difference in them. Top spin, fast. So whether it's spinning or whether you go slow, these guys are really just, completely away from what that pitch is giving you. Yeah,
that's the thing that I can't get my head around, why they would make the change, even though the ground's telling you that it's not conducive to the spin bowling because they're all different. It's not as though you've got 3 bowlers that bowl off spin. You've got 3 left arm spinners, 3 wrist spinners. You've got literally the whole shooting, your whole match covered. So if one isn't effective, you've got 3 that the likelihood is will be effective. So I'm a bit not sure on that decision.
There's dependency on stats. That's really crept into cricket.
Yeah, dependency on stats over form for me is something I think you have to. For me, it's a brave call to pick 4 spinners. But I think from Farooqi's point of view, averaging 79 in 2 games, I think I'd have gone with the spinner and gone, that's a form call as opposed to what the ground is telling me. The Naveen one that's coming in my head, I think it was Josh Butler that he got out. When he come back through the gear, it was an absolute beauty. So they've got a seamer in form. They've got 4 spinners in form. Yeah. Unfortunately, they've left one of them out. I hope that doesn't come back to haunt them in that early part of the game.
Because in that early part of the game, if you look at Afghanistan with the ball, the early part of the game is where they really need to pick things up. So far in this World Cup, things haven't really worked for them in that power play. Yes, Naveen Haq has looked impressive, but first 10 overs, the average is 57.8, economy is 5.8, close to 6, balls per boundary 7.5, but the only 4 wickets in those first 10 overs. It's the middle overs. That's where the spinners come in. Really, make things tight for you, vacuum content. 18 wickets, 5.2 economy. And that's again, those 30 overs. You could have made it 35, 40 overs.
Yeah, you could. And the thing is, it says 1 to 10 and you've only got 4 wickets. But if you've got if you've got that extra spin bowler, he then has to bowl in the power play. And then it just comes to, it literally comes a little bit of who flinches first. So all of a sudden, if you've got to bring 3 overs of spin into the power play, if the batter takes you on, And it's whether if the batter takes you on, takes you downtown, and he hits you for a couple of sixes, you say, well played.
Everything
but all of a sudden, if you lose a couple of wickets, and then you've got that middle period where you know that's your bonus section, you know where you're strong there, and all of a sudden, if you that extra one wicket can make a massive difference in the game. If you've got a seamer who is going around the park and you're not sure of bowling, the likelihood is you'd probably turn to a Nabi, you'd turn to a Majib, you'd turn to a Rashid Khan over Farooqi anywhere to just contain that back end of the power play.
Now that, of course, is chatter about Afghanistan's bowling, who have elected the toss, who won the toss, decided to bowl first. But if we have to look at that one player, and we got Firdausa Munda, ESPN Cricket Info's Firdausa Munda is present in Pune right now, and she's saying that one player to watch out for is Afghanistan's opening batsman, Ibrahim Zadran.
Hello everybody, I'm here in Pune ahead of the game between Afghanistan and Sri Lanka. It's a really important game for both sides. They're deadlocked on 4 points each, and we know that getting 2 points pushes them a little bit away from the chasing pack. It could be crucial in finishing in the top 7, which is really important for qualification for that 2025 Champions Trophy. With all of that in mind, Afghanistan need a collective effort, especially from their batting lineup. And the player I'd like you to look out for today is the opening batter, 21-year-old Ibrahim Zadran. So Ibrahim Zadran became the fastest Afghan player to 1,000 ODI runs. He got there in 24 innings, which is pretty quick. And he's also got an ODI batting average of 49.27. That's really impressive, and it's the highest among the Afghan batters. He's proving ESPN Cricket Info right. In 2020, we picked him among our 20 young players to watch for the 2020s. And he's now in that list along with his opening partner, Rahmanullah Gurbaz. So what I really like about Zadran is that he complements Gurbaz so well, because we know that Gurbaz is an aggressive player. He's kind of got that one tempo that he goes at. And then Zadran, who's actually said that Test cricket is his favorite format, has shown that he has the temperament to shift through the gears. So he starts a bit slowly, he's willing to bide time at the crease, and then he really gets going. According to our data, his most productive shots are on the offside. He's really, really strong on the cover drive, the cut shot, and the square drive. So that's where the bowlers will be wanting to target him. But crucially for Afghanistan, with him and Gurbaz, they've laid a couple of platforms now, 2 century stands in the World Cup so far, for a middle order that's been struggling. And so there's a lot resting on them. They're young players. They've come through the under-19 ranks. They've done really well in ODI cricket, and they're the ones on whom Afghanistan's hopes are resting. We've seen them do it batting first. We've seen them do it in a chase. Now we'll wait and see how they do against Sri Lanka. Keep your eye on Ibrahim Zadran, a talented young batter. I hope that you enjoy this match between Afghanistan and Sri Lanka in Pune, and I look forward to bringing you more action soon.
Thanks for that, Firdaus. It's an understatement. Ibrahim Zadran loves playing against Sri Lanka. ODI career average, 49. ODI average versus Sri Lanka, 65. Farveez, when you see this boy playing, especially that innings versus Pakistan, what he did, he has all those ingredients of what you need to succeed in the 50 over, right? Adapt to situations, know when to accelerate, and know when to pull back as well.
Yeah, he's a complete player. For his age, he's very matured, and in the 200s he got against Sri Lanka, one at Hambantota, one at Pallakela. I was personally there, and he batted so beautifully without dropping a sweat. It's all about pure class, timing, placement. It was just wonderful to see, and we all knew that from there onwards he would be a player to watch out for in the World Cup in India, especially with the pitches being so friendly for batting. And he complements with Gurbaz very well. I mean, Gurbaz is a person, he likes to tonk the ball, and Zadran, technically correct, he likes to rotate the strike, play that longer innings. That's why I said for Sri Lanka to win this game, 2 things: the top 3 batters of Afghanistan, and when they are batting, when Sri Lanka is batting the middle overs, Rashid Khan, Mohammad Nabi, and Mujibur Rahman in that middle overs, how are they going to play that between 11th to 40th over is going to determine the results of this game as far as I see it.
Steve, I always wondered, given the influx of 2020 and the influence of hitting, strike rates and everything moving up, I always wondered if these kind of batsmen would, they would test that test of time, if they would be around, say, another 4 years' time, or you'd see the end of such batsmen who, take their time sometimes, know when to accelerate, rather than just going ta all the time versus.
Whenever I get that question, I always say a lot that you don't have to hit the ball over the field. You can hit it through the field.
Yeah.
And I think batters like Zadran, the ball through the field very, very nicely. You know, a player from the crease, not a great deal of foot movement, but great hands. Ball coming on. So he's very, very good against quick bowling, where he can stand there and play. He's a nice high elbow, plays lovely, sort of correct, proper cricket shots. So he does hit the ball through extra cover really well. You know, cover point really well. So you know, when you see somebody that charges down the wicket, and hits the ball over the top, and it bounces once for 4, it looks great.
Yeah.
But it's the same as if somebody hits a nice, you know, comfortable check drive that just misses to the, you know, the left hand of cover point or extra cover, and it rolls along the deck for 4. There's no difference between what comes at the outcome. It's a boundary, and I think that you look at, you know, someone like Rohit Sharma. Rohit Sharma's got both sides of the game. Yeah. You know, the way you watch Virat Kohli in the power play. You know, Virat Kohli doesn't hit too many balls in the air early on. He likes to hit the ball along the floor and build into it. Zadran, you see the numbers. His conversion rate's fantastic. If he gets past 30, you know he's getting to 50. And if he gets to 50, there's a great chance of him going to 100. So, you know, he is a proper player, but he's also a great foil for Gulbaz. And that, for me, is a great partnership.
It's the same thing what Jonathan Trott said, their coach, after their win versus Pakistan. He said, once we get into the dressing room at the halfway stage, I sat down Zadran, I sat down Gurbaz. I told them, look, this is not something you finish in 30 overs. Take it deep, 40, 45. And I told Zadran, you've got to do that, let Gurbaz do his thing. And it's a good combination that works, in a sense. One guy goes at the bowlers, the other guy takes his time, you know, bides his time on the crease.
And Jonathan Trott was like that as a player as well. Jonathan Trott was somebody who wasn't a six-hitter. He wasn't somebody that ran down the wicket and hit the ball over the top of the bowler's head. He found a way of getting the ball through mid-wicket, through extra cover, down a fine leg, third man, used the angles of the ground really, really well. And nobody would expect Jonathan Trott to be one of the top batters in ODI cricket. And he was. And that's what, you know, the way he's sort of teaching this team, that there is more ways to skin that cat. There is more ways to get power play runs. Yeah. And I think between the two and the combination of the two in this tournament so far has been fantastic. And he is a good foil, like I said before, for each other. Yeah. But what they have done is they've getting them off to good starts. The problem for Afghanistan is if they lose a couple of early wickets, where does the middle order come? But at the top, they're well suited. 1, 2, 3, 4 on both sides. I think both sides at 1, 2, 3, and 4 have performed in this tournament. I think the reason why they're not pushing towards 4th place is because the middle order and both sides have let them down.
Not been complimenting them
for
whatever the starts they've been given. On the other hand, Farveez, what's happening with Kusal Mendes? Clearly the most talented batter in this lineup. There's no doubt about it. But ever since that mantle of captaincy has come to him, his individual numbers have taken a massive hit.
Yeah, that's been a quite issue for Sri Lanka. First couple of games, the way Kusal Mendes batted, we all thought, especially me, I was thinking, right, this is the breakthrough World Cup that he's been looking for, because, you know, before that he had quite a lean period. But come the Australian game, Netherlands and England, you know, he's had a bit of a failure, I would say. But he's someone that I will always back, and I've always backed him in the past as well, because if he gets going, we all know the damage he could do. And maybe the captain's armband a little bit too much, or maybe he's thinking too much about the captaincy rather than his batting. I think this is where he needs to balance and needs to understand when he bats, he just has to bat and back himself. Kusal Mendes is good and dangerous when he's trying to attack and try to be positive. I mean, the last couple of games, that's what I didn't see him. I mean, he wasn't attacking that much, especially more than the England game. The Netherlands game was taking little time, but that's not Kusal Mendes' game. He's somebody who likes to get going from the first ball. If he sees it, he goes after it. So I like to see Kusal Mendes going back to his natural ways of scoring runs, rather than not thinking too much about losing his wicket and thinking of the middle order. Because you have a certain Angelo Matthews at batting at number 7, he could be, you know, playing that safeguard role, or maybe if Sri Lanka needs to up the ante, he could do that as well. So, you know, when you have the luxury of having Angelo Matthews at number 7, I think it'll free up Salman a little bit more mentally to play his natural game.
But I always wonder, you know, that when you're handing over captaincy that through mid-tournament because of something that's unforeseen, like an injury, would you rather give it to someone who is your highest run getter, who is in the form of his life, as opposed to give it to someone else so that that weight of that individual performance that he's bringing with it does not get affected?
I think before the tournament, the vice captain was announced. That's where the problem was. I mean, personally, Kusal Mendes, I like to see him as a batter. He's a good captain. He's someone who's very proactive than reactive. He has shown in the last 3 games, he has done it. But being the vice captain, naturally it will go to the vice captain. And Kusal Mendes has been earmarked, I think a year back, that he's going to be the next leader in the white ball setup going forward. So, Kusal Mendes has to learn. He has to learn to play with the tag of captain and how you're going to balance things out. And as I said, when you bat, you don't captain. You just play as a batter. Just let your natural instincts take over. This is something that he needs to adapt quick because, as I said, even though Sri Lanka doesn't make it to the top 4, top 8 is necessary. So that's where I think Kusal Mendes has that knack of when he gets going, he can easily blast any team off.
Sure. And Steve, I think the one thing that's working for them is even if Kusal Mendes is not in form, you've got guys like Nasanka and Samara Vikrama just batting some beautiful cricket, a 50-over game. They are.
The top 4 is firing at some point. It's just not all 4, and that is the challenge to for this latter part of the tournament. The thing from Mendes' point of view is he's a character and a player where you want him to come off probably 1 and 3. If he comes off 1 and 3, you've got a great chance of. So the captaincy, yes, is a little bit of a burden, but I don't think it's weighing too much. I think it's just that's his natural game. He is going to play aggressively, and aggressive players do get out. Yeah. And then you have to take that, and I'm sure he's lived his whole career with that. So I don't think the captaincy is too much of a burden on him. What he's doing is the players coming in around him, 1, 2, 3 and 4, are scoring runs. The problem is getting them 2, 3 of them to do it in the same game, as opposed to just one doing it in a game, and that's probably why they've only got 4 points in the tournament.
Gentlemen, prediction time. Steve, where do you see this one going? How much do you see Sri Lanka getting?
I think
score for them.
Sri Lanka are strong. I think Sri Lanka are favourites, but I just think the toss might have brought the game back into more of an even keel. I think this is a 50-50. I think it's too hard to call. If I'm going to go with anybody, I'll probably go with the experience of international cricket of Sri Lanka.
Farveez, same for you?
Yeah, 50-50, very hard call to make, and with experience and batting first and making sure the top 3 gets out pretty cheaply for Afghanistan. I think Sri Lanka is in the driving seat, but 321 pass score, at least Sri Lanka has to get up to 300 to have any big say in this game.
Farveez, Steve, thank you so much for joining us. As we leave you, let me remind you, if you haven't downloaded the ESPN Cricket Info mobile app, please do download the app because there is so much for you guys. If you love the gentleman's game, follow us on our various social media handles as well. Scores, news, views and analysis coming your way. We, of course, will come your way after Sri Lanka's innings. You are watching Maruti Suzuki Arena presents ESPN Cricket Info Matchday.
Stunning looks, then swift,